Hey everybody, welcome to Keyword Crypto. This is Michael. I got a guest, Automatic Blues, or Automatic for the People as he goes by on Twitter. Automatic_blues, and then his name is Automatic for the People. So, Automatic, why are you here today? Because we were talking about something and it piqued my interest. So why don't you explain why you wanted to come on and talk about it and what it is?
Yes. So the topic that really clicked, I think, between us was the topic of the term greenwashing and using it to explore what's going on at the moment with the arguments around Bitcoin's environmental impact. And as someone who's has a long-standing interest in environmentalism, which predates my cryptocurrency interest, or predates the existence of cryptocurrency as well. When I started seeing certain arguments being used, they just felt eerily familiar to structures of arguments that I've seen in the past, and wanted to just sort of explore that topic. So I've been giving that some thought.
What particular arguments from the Bitcoiners really kind of triggered it for you?
Okay, so I'm going to try and represent them as well as I can. I do find them bizarre, but
yes,
which does make it harder to make sense of them. But one of the arguments is that Bitcoin mining, whilst actually using up a lot of energy, is creating a market for renewables, which I thought was astonishing.
So weird.
I mean, my perspective on this, I was someone who's worked in the renewable industry. When I first encountered cryptocurrency, at that time I was a renewable energy installation engineer and had been working in renewables since 2006. There's no lack of a market for renewables. That's not a significant thing. I think what they were trying to connect with is that idea is that renewables has a problem, which I think is now so completely out of date because it's been completely sort of pretty much addressed, is the problem of renewables is often you might want to produce them at a slightly different time than you want to consume them. So this is like a challenge within renewables. And I think this idea has been captured, but connected with by the Bitcoin maximalists, and they're saying, "Oh well, hey, look, we've got a really good product now. We can sell our Bitcoin mining, our gargantuan server farms, as a way of storing this energy, storing it." Obviously, the energy is then it's not a very useful battery because you can't unstore it. So it's a very one-way kind of storing it. So addressing this thing, but from a renewables point of view, the way that renewables generally address this issue is by integrating them into a diverse grid, basically. So most renewables participate in a grid which will also so it might have solar and wind, and then they exist currently alongside certain fossil fuels or nuclear, for example, in a diverse grid. And that's the main way where the intermittent production of renewables doesn't really present significant problems at the moment. And then the future for renewables is genuine storage, be that in the form of lithium-ion batteries, or also through hydrogen, for example, which is a way that. Now, the thing is, there's a complex issue there, but I certainly don't think that Bitcoin offers anything really much into the storage of energy, and also there is no significant restriction in a market for renewables. And in fact, if we look within my lifetime, middle-aged man now, but in the time that I've spent working in renewables, the absolute explosion of renewables is something that occurred prior to the absolute explosion of Bitcoin mining. So I don't see really this connection at all. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's the first argument that just makes no sense, basically.
Well, and my question whenever they say, "See, look, like we're creating a store of energy," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" I don't understand what that means. Like, are they saying that Bitcoin is a battery?
I mean, I've heard that term used, and it just seems completely nuts because obviously it's a pretty rubbish battery if you can't take the energy out again at the other
Yeah.
side. So really, the only way I can understand Bitcoin mining is consuming energy. So then the argument segues a little bit if to the idea that yes, we're consuming energy, but we're only consuming the energy that's being wasted. Is the latest. And to be honest, at this stage, like the arguments got quite sophisticated because it's introducing new topics. But I think the main reason that these new topics are being introduced is to just weed out the only partially interested, so that
Yeah.
there's hardly anyone left.
Yeah.
But in reality, this just doesn't make a great deal of sense at all. The elephant in the room is that there are alternatives, right? And that's the thing that is common with, say, for example, fossil fuel companies when they're greenwashing historically, talking about, say, for example, carbon capture and storage. And I'll say with this, like my godfather worked on carbon capture and storage. That was like, that was what he did with his later career. Fair play to him. It was certainly worthwhile doing, but it really, from an environmentalist point of view, it always felt like a clear greenwash from the petroleum industry. These basically the general perspective is that, from my perspective, these are new arguments being deployed by the Bitcoin maximalists are eerily familiar. And yeah, on this issue of there is an alternative, is of course you don't need carbon capture and storage if you can find alternatives to this petroleum-based economy, because if there are renewable energy and there are energy-efficient forms of transport as well, so there exist bicycles, there exist buses. These things exist, and if they were implemented, the amount of energy that was consumed would be dramatically reduced. And then if we snap over to the crypto sphere, there exist alternatives to Bitcoin, and the fact that the Bitcoin maximalists will have the discussion about Bitcoin energy consumption without discussing currencies such as Nano, which use a vanishingly small fraction of energy to achieve the same achieve the same goals, then it's not an honest discussion, basically. And that's why I think. I'm calling them out. I say this is not an honest discussion. You're not trying to be honest.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack, because, and I feel like they do this on purpose. I feel, and we said before we recorded, and I've talked about this in the past, that these feel like they're actual playbooks that Big Tobacco did in the U.S. by just flat out lying and saying nicotine wasn't addictive, even though all their studies, like we later found out, they had all these studies that proved that nicotine was addictive. They knew it, and they just flat out lied to Congress. Big Oil claiming that global warming isn't happening, even though they've known from their own studies since the 70s that global warming was a serious problem, and that their industry was like the major component of the problem. And even the NFL with concussions, pretending that concussions aren't a thing, even though they've known since the 70s from their own internal studies that playing football causes massive concussions and internal brain damage, and just kind of, like whitewashing it away, pretending it's not an issue. And every time, an NFL player tries to sue for money, they go all out to try to like make sure that person doesn't get $1, because they know that once that one person wins a lawsuit, the floodgates are going to open. And just like Big Tobacco, once that one lawsuit went through, the floodgates opened. And it's going to happen with Big Oil too. So it's like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very easy to say what the common theme is between all these things. If you step back, is it's just money, right? It's that's the common thing, and it's where truth matters. What society determines to be true will then influence where profits can be made. And so when society determines that Bitcoin is inefficient, not because one major factor in determining that Bitcoin is inefficient is that the same thing can be achieved without this expense of energy.
Yeah.
And at that stage, it's deemed inefficient, and at that stage, it will become less profitable. And the maximalists are engaging in the same process of obscuring this realization because they don't want the public, they don't want the masses to to make this judgment anytime soon, right? So maybe it's inevitable. That's one of the things. Maybe it's inevitable. But I did want to talk about whether it is inevitable and whether truth will out, or what the processes are by which truth does succeed. Because I don't think that truth often looks after itself. I think truth is often very reliant on us to look after it. And so, I mean, the reason why this greenwashing exists, and obviously greenwashing is the term that makes sense within the environmental movement, and so it's a term that's been used within that. So you might struggle to apply that to tobacco, for example, or head injuries in the NFL, but there's another word that lines behind it, which is the word whitewashing, right? Which is we use this word whitewashing to refer to when someone corrupt tries to obscure something. And as far as I'm aware, the word whitewashing is from whitewash, which is something that you paint on windows. When, say, for example, you're doing building work in a shop, you might paint the front window with whitewash and you can't see what's going on behind it, right? And so it's the intention is to obscure. And then so environmentalists created the word greenwashing to describe the same thing when you're trying to obscure something. But I think there's, I wanted to throw in some other vocabulary to describe this. And so one term that gets used in political theory is recuperation. And so this is a term from the Situationist International, who were revolutionaries from the 1960s, avant-garde artists and revolutionaries. And they spoke about a general process whereby whoever is in charge will take the ideas that are most threatening to them and then turn them around into something that is less threatening. And so we can see this happening in culture all the time, is what the situationists would say. And so I think, there's a broader process where this is just a sort of, it's an inevitable thing. It's an urge that exists within people who have a lot of power. And within cryptocurrency, who has a lot of power? Well, who has a lot of power? We all have power in our voices and what we can do. But for a lot of people, the power comes from the bank balance and the ability, the purchasing power, and obviously with an organization like MicroStrategy continuing to accumulate Bitcoin as they do, that represents a certain amount of power, and they certainly don't want that power to be dissipated, as it would be if crypto markets started shifting in other directions and exploring new currencies.
Can you give a better a concrete example of that avant-garde movement happening right now? I mean, is what MicroStrategy is doing an example of it?
Yeah. So what I would say is what MicroStrategy are doing, or what the Bitcoin maximalists are doing, is they're recuperating the idea of an environmentally friendly cryptocurrency, a sustainable cryptocurrency. So the idea that there could be a sustainable cryptocurrency is threatening to them, and so then they present Bitcoin as a sustainable cryptocurrency, or Elon Musk might present Dogecoin as a sustainable currency, which it may or may not be. But it's certainly not. And so that certainly not the clearest example of one. But that process of recuperation is can be seen happening in society all the time. So if you get an exciting new youth trend that might take young people, to form their own social spheres, then you might find very soon after that this thing is now available to buy in your local chain record store, and things that are fringe get brought into the mainstream to bring the people with them and to sort of prevent the possibility of escape. That's certainly the radical the perspective of it. And I think you can see these processes. They're just sort of natural processes that happen within power structures. So the thing that I wanted to say in relation to that is that there is also, this is not just a hopeless thing, because people who have tackled this in the past have looked at what we can do about it as, say, people who don't necessarily have as much power. And then so alongside the idea of recuperation, we have the idea of détournement. I think, well, my French is terrible, but which is
your
the
English.
Idea
that's the norm, right?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
William Shakespeare made a whole career of making fun of English people butchering French.
Yeah,
right?
just say French words badly. It's very close. It's just right over there. We can just about see it, but we definitely can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
Basically, this process can also be carried out by those who have less power, and that's where we take ideas from the mainstream, and then we find the radical within them. So we take their messages and turn them around. And this, for me, I would say, is what we see alive and well within meme culture. Where we look at the expressions that are being made by the powerful, and we ridicule them, but we also take those messages and turn them around. At the moment, Sailor will be widely mocked for the phrase "there is no second best." That's a phrase that is going round, and as we take these phrases, we turn them, twist them, explore them for their meaning. This is, of course, what we're now used to. Memes are an absolute, constant activity of this example. But I'm old enough to remember when, the internet wasn't quite so rapid. It wasn't quite so prolific. And so, maybe this was being done by graffiti artists. It was being done through music, distributed, be it the DIY punk scene that I may have spent some time involved in. These alternative spaces we used to have to go to great effort to create these spaces, and now we have the ability to do that relatively quickly within the internet, within internet culture, which is really exciting possibilities. So
but also it leads to the fear for me of how easy it is to integrate into those communities.
Okay. You mean
for
they
hackers,
can be exclusion?
Just for anybody who can just sneak in and pretend to be, it's the old Steve Buscemi meme of hi, I'm a cool kid, and hanging out with high school kids, and he's 60. But with the internet, it's so easy to catfish and just pretend you're somebody else, especially in cryptocurrency where everyone's catfishing. Nobody is who they say they are. And it's dangerous in the sense of how much of the information are we getting from somebody that we think is, a collectivist hacker who cares about humanity, and it's really just somebody at blockchain, .com who spent, $100 million, which is, 1/1 millionth of their entire income, or their entire holdings in Bitcoin, to do this campaign of greenwashing everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, we have no idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this one thing that's really, one of the notes that I'd made before it, I was thinking, what is a big Bitcoin maximalist, right? And one thing I was going to say is, well, they're only one type of character in the crypto space. There's so many others. And then there's this thing that I wrote down, and I just think about it. I don't know any in real life.
Yeah.
Like none. I've got friends in crypto. I've got friends who've I've introduced to it. I don't know any Bitcoin maximalists in real life. And, other people may, of course, that might just be, I'm not well connected. Maybe I'm not going to the right yacht parties, but it's, it's just not, you just, how real is this? We can't, we can never tell, but we can, explore reality from where we stand a lot, look around, do we trust, who do we trust? There's some people that we've connected to in this space on a personal level, and we can begin to try and rebuild our truth. But yeah, we should be aware that ideas can be taken and they can be twisted, and it's a dangerous world out there. And with memes, with ideas, thinking about how powerful this idea of the meme, the idea is, where it comes from. I remember reading it. It's Richard Dawkins is the originator of this term, isn't he? The meme, when he talks about it in The Selfish Gene, and just how powerful these ideas are. But we know how to manipulate them. We know how to influence what ideas develop, which ones go forward. And so it shouldn't surprise us that a multi-million-pound organization would be able to do the same thing. So we do have to think carefully to hold on to truth in a space like this, definitely.
Well, I mean, this stuff has been going on forever, even, pre-internet. They, they did it with newspapers. They did it with radio. They did it with TV. Now they're doing it with the internet. Now they're doing it with Twitter and social media. It's been going on forever of just essentially just flat out lying to the public about as a way to and I use this, and I don't use this word lightly, oppress. It's about oppression. How do you oppress the poor people in the middle class? And tobacco did it by making them sick so they could make more money. Big oil did it by destroying the planet and our air quality so they could make more money. Factories were doing it by destroying our air quality and getting people sick so they could make more money. It's always it's about money, but at the end of the day, like it really just comes down to a way of oppressing people for power. And you said power and money, and that usually the way to get that is by oppressing people in a certain way. And I think that's my frustration and disappointment with Bitcoin, is that it started off with such high hopes of achieving a level of democratization for poor people, and then it just got co-opted by powerful people and rich people, and it turned to the exact opposite thing as a way of sucking wealth out of the communities of poor people in the middle class by essentially taxing them. And instead of those tax dollars going to the community, it goes to the rich people overseas who are running the mining farms.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, when I was preparing for this, one of the things that I was going to wanted to sort of throw in there as a question is, if you go back to the origin of Bitcoin cryptocurrency, there's this cypherpunk idea, right? Yeah. This ideal of what people are trying to do. And the example, Bitcoin's called Bitcoin because of BitTorrent. They were trying to create a liberating space, a space where the individual, Satoshi, but it emerges from a set of ideas. Now, in this kind of war between the dominant controlling ideas and which side do we think the cypherpunks would be on? Are they on the centralizing? I just don't believe it. I just don't. This for me, What is Satoshi's vision is obviously a controversial question within cryptocurrency. But I just can't believe that Bitcoin maximalism is the Satoshi vision, because the protocol is open source, right? It's open source, so it can be copied. It's like it has built within the protocol the concept of forking. This decentralization on a fundamental level seems to be like built in, hardwired into what the idea of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is. It just seems really unlikely to me that vision was then intended to become this centralizing vision.
I mean, part of me thinks that would be the ultimate scam on society. The ultimate snake oil salesman is creating something that you tell people is going to be this great equalizer for poor people and for the middle class, and as a way of getting away from government. But the whole thing is open. Like you said, it's open source, and everything is on a public blockchain. How easy is that to manipulate for governments and to essentially track every single transaction for everybody on the planet now? And that makes me question: okay, did you just not have force? Did Satoshi just not have foresight to realize that pseudo anonymous isn't anonymous? So eventually, it's going to be easy. We're going to have software that easily tracks, which wallets belong to which people, and we're gonna essentially know every single everyone's going to know every single transaction of every single person who uses that. And they're like, Lightning Network will fix that. And it's like, okay, so it's a little bit more centralized now, and I mean, who's paying fees and blah blah. And it's just like, none of it makes sense to me in that sense. There's so many holes along the way.
Yeah, from my perspective, like, if you were to ask me which of two possibilities do I think it is? Do I think it was deliberately set up as as a Trojan to capture large numbers of people? I would say, alternatively, was it an attempt? Was Bitcoin, the first Bitcoin, an attempt at creating what it said it was trying to create, but it just isn't quite there yet? Like, it hasn't the first protocol in how it's first written isn't quite there yet. I would say, it's more likely number two. I think was the phrase, don't put down to malice what can be defined by incompetence or something. It's like the first attempt, it was really, it was a good try. And then what a lot of other people have done when they've looked at that first attempt, they've gone, that's all right, but it needs to be private. And so they've invented privacy coins. Or they've gone, that's okay, but we need to get rid of competitive mining because it's just going to cause a massive energy consumption explosion. And so that's what, Colin's done with Ryblox and then Nano. And it's like, it just, within, this is, done within the open source software culture. It's, nothing's finished, right? Until it's good enough. And if there are things that are wrong with it, then surely we change them. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm not capable of going and changing these things myself. Like, I don't have the software skills to go and do that. And I think there's a lot of people within cryptocurrency are probably in a similar situation. And then there are plenty of devs out there who aren't, who can go and tinker with these things, release new ones. But I think what we all can do is join in the critique as users and say, well, this is a flaw. And for me, the competitive mining is like a clear flaw. But what you've described in terms of the open ledger and this historic record, that's another like significant issue that needs addressing. So I'm make no secret the fan that I'm a big Nano fan, and Phil Nano has done a significant job of addressing one of those concerns very, very well. But I realized that it doesn't necessarily completely touch the other issue at all.
Yeah, because to me, Nano feels like Bitcoin 2.0. Like it's the first iteration of a DAG that seems to be working, and they're solving a lot of these problems. But then if Nano becomes the new Bitcoin and wipes out proof of work and is able to prove that you don't need proof of work, then we're going to still have a lot of these same issues. Well, it's not anonymous. It's, like, what about this? What about that? Like, how do you deal with smart contracts? So you gotta have to, like, how does it, and it doesn't have smart contracts. So how do you integrate with a platform that does do smart contracts? Because if the world is moving towards decentralized smart contracts, you have to have a currency that actually works with that world. And so these are all the questions that I have for Nano. But when I ask them, I don't get called an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I don't get whitewashed. Yeah. I don't get whitewashed about it. Like, oh no. And that's the thing. Like the funny thing is since I've been in cryptocurrency since 2017, I have been lied to over and over and over again, or misled by Bitcoin people who said it was, you couldn't, like, it was, oh God, there's so many phrases that they used to say. It's like, you can't roll back transactions. You can't, like, it's immutable. It's, Michael Saylor saying it's faster than light. It moves at light speed. Like, all this is fucking bullshit that, it's clear they don't actually understand the thing they're shilling, because the whole point of Bitcoin was that it could be rolled back. If enough people agreed, they could roll back transactions. It's written in the code. Yeah. It's designed to do that. Like, and so to say it's immutable is just shows that they never read the white paper. And so, like, things like that, where it's just like, I can't tell if they're just incompetent or if they are trying to scam me.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe that's quite a hard question to unpick. How is the scam that they've got? That they're presenting themselves as understanding something better than they do. I mean, that's. But it's really hard to pick apart the psychology. Like, you want to do this on a personal level, because you see these people. They either are talking to you personally, or it feels like they're talking to you personally because they're trying to get you to remortgage your house and buy Bitcoin. I think was the last one, and so it feels very personal. I don't know whether I would even attempt to try and understand what's going on psychologically, because I feel I can understand so easily what's going on systematically, and that's what structurally they are going to make a lot more money if Bitcoin is the only show in town than they are if we accept that cryptocurrency, despite having been astonishingly successful. This is the one thing I want to say is that, I share the joy of seeing cryptocurrency overcome a huge number of the hurdles that it might have fallen at before this point. It hasn't been shut down by governments. It hasn't been obliterated by the banking system. It still persists, but it is still an experiment. It's it's work in progress. And I work in engineering, and the world is the world is work in progress. It's not fixed. A lot of the products that surround you, they're work in progress. They, customers complain about them, and it goes back and it gets the design gets looked at again, and it things get changed, and we this sort of this system that requires no maintenance, I think is just a bit of a myth that's created by people other than the people who make things. When people make things, you realize that you have to remake them. You constantly make and rebuild things. And then there's a whole other group of people who are marketeers who sell you stuff, and they sell you it like it's fixed and immutable. But so well, I know we're using immutable in a slightly different way earlier, but yeah, it's these technologies are supposed to evolve, they're supposed to change, and if they are not perfect, and if there are better alternatives, then we should be discussing what those are. And absolutely, we should be discussing what they are. And so as a nano enthusiast, yes, we should talk about privacy. My understanding is that on the nano chain, the decision to not focus on privacy has been to achieve the highest throughput of transactions that can be achieved. Now, that's my understanding of why it is, but you ask that question from someone better qualified. But on the
and like I don't expect that to be a thing. Like I said, I don't when Nano is like Bitcoin 2.0 or cryptocurrency 2.0, it's the first iteration of the next level that seems to be working. And there's going to be a million things that people want to do, and you're going to have branches breaking off and figure out a way for the original to actually interact with those. Because Bitcoin chose the path of, no, we don't want Bitcoin 1.1, which was Ethereum and smart contracts or private or privacy coins or this or that. They said, we don't want to interact with any of that. And now they're busy paddling upstream trying to catch up to Ethereum, saying, no, we do want to interact with you guys. Please wrap our Bitcoin. Please RSK or this or that, whatever. Like we want to do smart contracts. We've been able to do smart contracts all along. We've been doing smart contracts all along. Where were you guys? We were the first ones doing smart contracts. And it's just like, what? Like, you guys are talking out of your ass now so much. Every 5 seconds, it's a different narrative. And I just don't understand.
What you just described there, for me, seems to follow exactly the same formula again of recuperation, right? So you've got people who are trying, the thing is, I'm not sure that Bitcoin maximalists are particularly good at this. We've all grown up surrounded by, people who are very good at it, creating these worlds for us. Big corporations who have sold us a whole number of different lies that have dominated all our lives. But I'm not particularly sure that Bitcoin maximalists are very good at it, but I definitely think that they're doing it. And so, if they're trying to recuperate the idea of smart contracts, then that just seems a very similar formula to recuperating the idea of an environmentally friendly or sustainable cryptocurrency, which the reason why I feel that's happening is because that idea is threatening. That idea is threatening to their monopoly, because the thing is, maybe this other environmentally friendly cryptocurrency, maybe they don't own all of it, maybe they don't have such a massive stake in it. It's
well, they're also not generating income from mining. They're not generating income from running businesses on it. They're not there's like the danger of Nano is they're like, you can't make any money off of it unless you just buy it.
Yeah, there's no real obvious privileged position within Nano. And to be honest, like, although I'm a Nano holder of sorts, I'm not like a massive Nano accumulator. Anyone who does recognize my Twitter handle will know my main pitch was I was a Nano spender, and I spent a good year or so trying to spend it every day. Which was my little challenge to myself. So, but this also goes back to what I've been doing with cryptocurrency since the beginning. So I first got interested in Bitcoin back in to calculate what it was. It was back in 2013, and I didn't have a lot of money back then. But my aim was never to buy or hold a very large amount of it. But I did experiment with it, and I spent it. And my life is full of these little things that are worth, if you look at them, a painfully large amount of money if you had only not spent the Bitcoin on them. So I've got some microfiber cloths that I bought absolutely ages ago for
that are now worth $1 million each.
Yeah, it's just insane amounts of money. There was a T-shirt
So we have,
which
we have Bitcoin pizza guy and Bitcoin microfiber guy now.
Yeah, I think when I say the microfiber cloth, I'm sure there are other people who will remember back to 2013 that was one of the things you could buy. And there was also somebody selling organic clothes from Cornwall in the UK. I bought some of them. I bought a T-shirt for a child, and one of the things, my child, and one of the things that about children's clothes is they grow out of them really fast, and then you give them away. So somewhere out there's a T-shirt, and in my head now that T-shirt has a whale on it, but I think that might be just my mind playing tricks on me, But it definitely had some animal on the front of it, and it may or may not have been a whale, but I haven't been able to find the T-shirt, find a photograph of it. But I'll try and do some digging on my devices and try and find the transactions. With the ETH bull run of, I guess it was 2017. I'm not very good at the price movement things, but when we, when I bought some ETH and it was rapidly increasing in value, we bought a computer that sits on the other side of the room I'm in now, and it's currently not plugged in, but that's got to be something like $40,000 worth of computer or something if you price it up like that. But this is for me, that's what cryptocurrency was all about, because if you read the white paper, even if you haven't read all of it, you might have read the subtitle, which is, if I remember rightly, peer-to-peer electronic cash. Which is surely what the purpose of it is, to spend it. And okay, maybe it's to hoard it, but is that really the world we want to create? Is that the exciting world that we want to create? Now, I'm not saying that if people want to store value that it's not a legitimate use for it, but it was never the one that really excited me individually, and it doesn't feel like completely the revolutionary use. And one of the big, obviously, criticisms of Bitcoin maximalism is that what happened to cash? When did this stop being cash? When did this stop being something that large numbers of people could use at the same time? And it might work very, very well if you're a billionaire and you want to store very large amounts of money, but there's an awful lot of people who can't afford a Bitcoin transaction fee. It just renders the whole thing completely useless. And that's one of the exciting things about Nano, is because it at least addresses the issue that large numbers of people could use it. And also people can use it at all different kinds of scales because it's, feeless. So there's no competing, financially competing to get your transaction through.
I mean, my frustration with the space in general is, and I'm going to throw Mario under the bus just because I like him. I had coffee with him a couple nights ago. When he was in town. He said, "Hey, I'm busy. Like, I'm more than happy to debate a Nano person, but I need to spend a few hours digging into it so I can discuss it with them on the air." And I was like, I respect that. I wouldn't want them to pay you though, just because I feel like that'd be weird. And they didn't want to do that either. But then my response is, then why do you keep saying Nano doesn't work? If you're admitting that you haven't done enough research on it to actually debate somebody about it.
How many hours research? You say a few hours. I mean, if you're going to go and say it doesn't work, you could probably at least put in a few hours.
That's what, but
before
to me,
saying that.
And I say that cheekily to Mario because he works full time. He's got a real, he's like, he has a belief system, and I respect that he thinks that this can only work a certain way. But as you said, life is a work in progress.
Yeah.
Nothing is immutable.
Maybe Mario's right. Maybe Mario's right. Okay. But, when you're describing what Mario is saying there, and I don't know who you mean, by the way, and because I'm not maybe as fully integrated as I could or should be into the crypto space, but maybe he's right. But at least he's sounding at least reasonably polite about it. But that's the feeling with the rhetoric from the Bitcoin maximalists is, this Bitcoin toxicity, which is apparently a good thing, is that it's not even like live and let live, you know. It's like it's just open hostility. But if somebody wants to properly research Nano and then be fully hostile, then that's fine, because that's rigor, you know.
Yeah.
So I respect Mario's busy schedule. You know, at some point he won't be able to ignore it, though.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
no, it's all right. I mean, it's Mario Gibney, but if any people don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
I guess just in general, I get frustrated with the lack of curiosity in the space, and the only thing I can and I get it to myself. Like I had somebody from, I had a past guest reach out and say, "Hey, I'd really love to talk to you about this other project." And part of me is just like, "Oh my god, there's so many projects, and people want to talk about all these different projects. It is kind of overwhelming." So I understand when Bitcoiners openly say, "Hey, we've got, there's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 cryptocurrencies. There's a new one made every single day. We can't sit there and examine every single one." And my response was, "Okay, great. Well, what about the ones that make it to the top? Because the cream rises to the top, whatever, blah blah blah. Are you gonna discuss those?" "Well, no, because all altcoins are shitcoins." It's like, okay, well then why did you say like you're overwhelmed? There's too many of them. Like, just say you don't believe in anything else. But like at that point, you're telling me that you don't believe in science or math or like anything, because that's not how science and math works. Like you said, it's not immutable.
I agree with you, and
immutable.
I appreciate you taking it to that fundamental level, because it's like there's an attitudinal thing there, right? It's like, was it just, as someone who works in engineering, like, okay, look, computer science isn't my area of expertise. I'll give you, completely give you that. But if we took that attitude into, say, I used to work in automobile manufacturing, for example, it's like, if you just didn't like consider and work on continually maintaining and improving and changing and in welcoming competition and alternatives designs within things, then lots more people would die. Because the physical world relies on that constant like scrutiny, and so you're going to struggle to get me out of that attitude when I have to apply that in my working life. I don't take my position for granted in my working life. To come into a space where all other cars are crap.
Yeah.
There's only one type of car. What is it? And although I will admit I'm a massive Toyota fan, and I wouldn't, I would struggle to spend lots of money on anything else, because I figured I might get 2 or 3 times the longevity out of
I actually
Toyotas, but
bought my last Toyota. That's it. I'm done.
You're done with Toyotas?
I'm done with Toyota, because
so what's coming next then?
Probably Honda.
Honda?
Yeah. Oh, well. Just because they're similar longevity to Toyota, but
absolutely. Toyota. I used to work for Honda.
Nice. Yeah. So Toyota petitioned. They I forget who else. Them and a couple other car companies fought against California raising their CAFE standards actively. Okay. And Honda and a bunch of other ones were like, "No, raise them whatever you want. We'll match it. We'll make it work." And Toyota was like, "No, we don't want to raise CAFE standards anymore. We're good with the way they are."
So could you do a little bit of translation for me? What is that legislation for? Is that emissions or?
Yeah. Sorry. CAFE standards is miles per gallon. So if you hear CAFE standards, it just means the current miles per gallon. And so if they want to raise the CAFE standards, they want to raise the average that your fleet has to have
Got you. So yeah, they'll have to stop making those awesome, massive 4x4s that
But I
everyone
mean,
really enjoys.
there's such a
It must be
small percentage of their fleet. I don't understand why they would have fought that and
it's probably
actively
quite.
fought it.
It's a disproportionately large proportion of their of their poor mileage, though. I guess so.
Maybe,
Yeah,
but like their I would say the Civic and the Prius are their two top selling cars, and maybe the Camry, but nowadays are the two top
yes,
selling cars in America, and and they're working on hydrogen and this and that, and it's just like why? I mean, they're at the forefront of high miles per gallon, and they're fighting against increasing miles per gallon. It's just like
yeah.
it was just asinine. So at that
I'm,
point, I
I'm,
was like, you know what?
I'm gonna
I can't support them anymore at this point.
I'm going to struggle to not geek out too much on this, but Civic is definitely a Honda car because I made
Yeah.
it. So,
Oh, nice,
so
nice, dude.
I can tell you
Congratulations.
that Civic's not Toyota. Civic's a Honda because I used to
Oh,
make them.
sorry.
But,
The Corolla. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
All
you for
good.
the correction.
That's fine. And yeah, I used to Anyway, I used to work. Enjoyable time in one of those factories, and yeah, it's just a really that you can't. I think if cryptocurrency is going to continue to be to grow, which I completely believe it will, I just don't believe that this phase of what is it, protectionism, or what are we
Yeah,
calling this? I don't even know. If we try to step back and look at it, I just don't see maximalism as it's making a lot of sense. It just doesn't look like it fits if you look historically, like other industries. Like where else has this happened? Where
never.
no, yeah, it's not real, is it? But maybe maybe it is. And the scientific part of my mind should give this a chance along with anything else. And empirical reality will come and give us an answer. But I just don't believe it. Like it's especially not something that emerges out of the open source movement. Like it's open source, you can
Yeah.
copy it. It's like it's there, right there in the founding concepts of it. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong because we can all be wrong. But
I mean, we don't
yeah,
have so. And when I interviewed Colin, I said, so my big complaint about cryptocurrencies are fixed supply, because I believe that fixed supply leads to hoarding, which is a sickness. I mean, we have shows about. So people are like, "Oh, hodl, hodl, hodl," and I'm like, "Okay, you realize that we have shows about hoarders to make fun of those people because it's a sickness. So people who hoard
yeah,
things are like certifiably sick. It's a type of just sickness. Okay, so like Jeff Bezos, obviously he has a mental illness. For him to want to acquire that much, there's something going on with him. Whether he was beaten up as a child or whatever, and he never got enough therapy for it, whatever it was, that's a type of, like, hoarding is a sickness. So the same thing with cryptocurrency. We don't want to encourage hoarding. We want to encourage usage. So how do we do that? Well, fixed supply doesn't do that. And so what I was saying to Colin, I was like, okay, well, can you give me an example, a real world example in the history of humankind where fixed supply led to more usage, not less? And he said, I can't. This is an experiment, because we've never had a fixed supply anything when it came to a currency. In the
yeah.
history of humankind, we've never had fixed supply, ever.
Because even if you thought you did, it would dilute through forgery, if nothing else, right?
Sure. Well, but just like
Yeah,
gold, when we were on the gold standard, we're still mining gold.
yeah, absolutely.
We're still discovering gold deposits. When we were on
And the island
go
and
ahead.
Colin's island dwellers, presumably still making round stones with holes
Yeah.
in the middle.
Still making those rye blocks.
They're still making them.
But barter
I have no idea.
system, bartering was about using things that were self-reproducing, chickens, animals, grain. All this stuff it was never a fixed supply. You'd have a fixed supply for a season, but the next season you had more supply.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, yeah, I will. You need to give me the link to your talk with Colin because yeah, I need to listen to that. But yeah, if he describes it as an experiment, then more power to his elbow because that's the right attitude.
yeah.
That's what. And if it's if it turns out that doesn't work, but that something with a slight inbuilt inflation does, there's then he's done a lot of the hard work
Yeah.
in creating the protocol as it is, right? So it can be changed.
I mean, I could actually go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say earlier, we were talking about, if Nano became the standard, then there would need to be, we would then expect there to proliferate alternatives that address the issues in Nano. And, it would be remiss of me not to mention the VEET project, which I spent a bit of time this year working with and supporting, where the VEET team have taken elements of Nano and built smart contracts onto them. And, it is inflationary. So there's two of the topics that we've touched. It isn't a privacy coin, but there is privacy coins which are also built on using similar architecture to Nano. And if I'd prepared better, I would have turned up with them on the tip of my tongue, but I haven't. But so that's already existing. It's because Nano exists, in some kind of fringe space within the crypto sphere. Obviously, the other currencies that are being built using similar architecture are even more fringe. And we should, if we're going to embrace this idea of experiment, then all your listeners should be looking into these things and exploring them if they've got the time. If they've got the time.
Don't wait for us to pay you to do it. I mean, my what I take from it and what I try to pass on to people in conversation is reminding them that, hey, Colin said this is an experiment. So maybe don't put all your eggs in one basket unless you really care about ecology and the environment and this and that. And the only reason why you're in cryptocurrency anymore is because of something like Nano. Okay, then yeah, but like I warn people, like, don't sell your house because just like Bitcoin didn't solve all of our problems, chances are Nano's not going to solve all of our problems. And the most reliable source of income long term in this country has been ETFs, like investing in ETFs, which is like a basket of different stocks that somebody else, they slowly change what's in that basket over time, but the fees are low and it has a really solid track record. And I could see eventually something like Nano and a couple other things being in ETFs and going all in on an experiment from a financial standpoint is, unless you're a billionaire already, that's usually like not necessarily the best thing to do from an investment standpoint. And so that's why I always try to remind people of, like, these are still experiments. Even the guy who created it is saying it's an experiment. So, like, take that,
I wouldn't even try to give investment advice. I'm definitely not the person to do that because I'm the person who spent Bitcoin in 2013
on a whale t-shirt.
And so I definitely wouldn't be dishing out investment advice. But if people want to back a project that they believe in, then that's great. And if you enjoy the thrill of backing something, so I've enjoyed backing Nano and done it very vocally, and then I've lent some support to VEET over a number of months this year. And it's but yeah, if you want to back something, that's fine. As far as I'm aware, if you want to get rich, then maybe picking a winner is a good way to do it. And so if you do go all in, but you didn't hear that from me, because I literally don't know what I'm talking about when it when it turns to making money. But what I've always thought, I think that if we're all early in this space, which we probably still all are, maybe, then
fingers crossed.
really, who knows whether we are or not. Then maybe this is late now, but we definitely were early at one point. But also knowing and understanding these things, and understanding where they're going to get implemented, is probably where we can find the, maybe not the most raw profitable experiences, but they are where we can maybe contribute the most and have the most valuable experiences. Because if cryptocurrency is going to continue to be a success, then it's going to get implemented widely. So it's going to get implemented in organizations. So with all the manufacturing organizations that out there in the world, for example, that's enough to keep me busy for a career. It's enough to keep all the community, the communities where you live, implementing cryptocurrency into those spaces. That's going to keep you busy, and this applies to everybody, and it will be profitable if it works. So if cryptocurrency works, if the experiment pays off, and I'm a believer, I still am. I'm a tentative believer. It looks like it's working, stepping back, looking at it. You can send money from, you can't do it with Bitcoin very easily, but with some shit coins, you can send money from one side of the earth to the other very, very fast with no fees. You can do that. And that looks like the vision that we were trying to create. And, people like IOTA are talking about building them into a machine economy, and there's still areas of hope and development. But broadly speaking, it looks like this experiment has been very, very successful, and it's clearly not finished.
Yeah.
But if the Bitcoin maximalists get their way, then I think it could end quite soon. There's no way they're going to win, though, in my mind. It just doesn't make any sense to me that this is where the development ends and it gets closed down, and there's only one path now. You either work on the closed shop of Bitcoin, or you're not doing. Your work is completely invalid. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that's it. But whatever it is, this project's got further to go. I think until something really fundamental changes. My mind is that if people are looking for where to participate in it, it will be bringing crypto to your local community, bringing it to your industry, whatever it is, whatever industry you work in. So if you're, in graphic design, then, there's plenty of work to be done finding out how to speed up the operations of your graphic design company by integrating cryptocurrency. And that will potentially be more profitable than just buying cryptos off CoinMarketCap and holding on to them and hoping that your one's going to moon. It seems that there's areas, if these cryptocurrencies work, then there's a business near you, potentially the one that you work in, where crypto could speed up and improve the functions that's happening in that industry.
And Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that opportunity is there for all of us,
and
not just the billionaires.
That's my biggest frustration with the community in general right now, is there doesn't seem to be a proactive group of people figuring out ways to help people pitch crypto in the real world. So it's like, I've been in the community for 4 years, going on 5 years. 5 years, 4 years going on 5, and I have a sit down with my mayor for my city next week, and I told him, I said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about cryptocurrency and also just catch up, because we've hung out in the past before he was my mayor, and he was like, yeah, great, and I'm thinking, like, I don't even know what to say to him.
Yeah, you should have everyone should be on your shoulder when you're in that conversation, right?
Yeah, and I
because rather than us all looking at each other in this Mexican standoff, trying to shoot each other's coins down, and one's going to come out victorious, we should all be get there with you, with our arguments, with our
or just suggestions. Hey, this is how we can help you save money by incorporating this into this actual facet of everyday life for the city, or this, or this is and nothing no one's really, everyone's speculating on price, no one's speculating on use. How are these things going to get incorporated? And so I get frustrated in that sense, just because it's I just don't know. I mean, that's not so my wheelhouse has never been that. My wheelhouse has been looking at it from a scientific and mathematical point of view. Is this thing going to work? Could it be beneficial to people? I've never thought of it. How could it be beneficial to corporations or businesses? And so I just, I don't even know what to suggest. But then maybe that's what I'll talk about, is how it can benefit people, and see if he can think of any way of introducing it to the city in that way. But that's my frustration with the community in general right now. It's just that there doesn't seem to be a cohesive argument on how to actually explain how it can help people.
Yeah.
Beyond making them rich, quote unquote.
Yeah. So at this stage, maximalism. So I've been talking about Bitcoin maximalism, but I wanted to throw out there the other. So there's a joking term potentially used within the Nano community of nano maximalists, which should be an oxymoron, but maybe isn't completely. But I do think that there's something there. If unless we think this experiment is complete, and who is calling time on the experimental development stage of crypto at the moment? That's just nuts. There's so much development and experiment going on. This is great. More of it, please. So unless you're calling time on the development stage, then if you're going to your local mayor, or you're going to the business you work at, your family, the community, whatever IRL thing you've got that you want to reach out to, surely you want to be going with the whole smorgasbord, to mispronounce another country's word, a whole selection of different potential solutions to there.
Hey, hold up really fast. Is that really how you guys say it?
I have no idea. I think so. Why we don't? Is that how's it actually said?
Smorgasbord.
Something like that.
But see, I don't know. So, I mean, sidetrack. Seriously, anytime an English person says something, I can't tell if they're doing it on purpose, if they mispronounce it on purpose, just because. So if anybody doesn't know the play As You Like It, written by William Shakespeare, there's a famous character in it, and his name's Jacques, but it's not Jacques, it's Jaques. And because if you know anything about iambic pentameter, he actually creates it's a 2-syllable word in iambic pentameter. Okay. So it's Jaques, blah 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 blah. So you can't say Jacques. So he actually did it kind of as a joke to fuck around with people, and said, so the guy's name is Jaques. And so
I apologize for my people.
No, I love it. It's great.
We're terrible.
But now after Shakespeare, I can never tell if I'm being trolled or not when somebody says a word wrong or slightly different.
No, I think we're all just like this. I think it's just, we just don't really understand the world. We threw ourselves onto the global stage, and we just really weren't prepared for it. So we couldn't understand what was going on. We blundered around.
We're the same over here. So
years or so. And now we're all just a bit embarrassed about what we did. Something like that anyway. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you. Do you remember what you were talking about?
I can't remember what I was saying. But
yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Smorgasbord of cryptocurrency.
So we should be going. Yeah, any one of us. So this is really difficult. I found this actually quite difficult in my year of all in on Nano, because it felt like the right thing to do, to be all in on Nano. But because Nano is quite specific in what it's trying to do, it does mean that it closes down a whole heap of conversations. Like it closes down the I'm going to pronounce something wrong again because I've only DeFi. How are we pronouncing that?
DeFi.
DeFi, yeah, decentralized finance. That's correct.
Yeah,
because other pronunciations.
I'm saying it like I'm the arbiter.
No, I need you.
That is the correct way of saying it.
I need you to do that for me because otherwise I'm lost.
But how American of that is me? It's like white American male. Yes, that is the way you say that word. It's like I don't know. Well, what the fuck am I?
As a white British man, I need someone to help me out here. So
you guys lost your mojo. So, we took it from you.
Yeah. So DeFi, it was not like available, and obviously this there's an awful lot of that going on, and so I stood aside. But then more recently, obviously looked in to Veet as a opportunity to explore those things. But smart contracts in general. Now I come from manufacturing. One thing that's gonna happen at some point, and this is maybe stuff that I'm gonna misremember the name of a cryptocurrency in a second, but something is going to happen in manufacturing at some point within supply chains where people are going to start capturing data that needs to be collected and plow through. And this is what's already been done by another V-named cryptocurrency, which I forget the name of. VeChain. There we go. VeChain. Yeah. So VeChain are talking about this and stuff. Now, I know that my industry in the end will do this, but it can't be done by Nano. Nano's not got smart contracts on, right? So
that we know of.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a way to, smart contracts, no, not that I'm aware of. I just don't see how it's possible.
Yeah,
but there might be a way of I just don't know. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I don't know enough about all these things, but anyway, that's fine. But NFTs, for example, I think that there's some function where NFTs can capture like quality data of parts that, as they then get assembled into product, and then recording production processes and activities. And this is like my life, what I do in my boring day job. And I know that cryptocurrency is going to come along at one point, I think, and do this, or I think it's going to, but I can't advocate for that with nanos. Like I couldn't advocate for that with Bitcoin. So if I think that's going to happen, then I think it's going to happen with like VeChain or Veet, if it was something like that at some point. Yeah. So maximalism just shuts down that whole possibility. So, like, if I'm super loyal to Nano, do I not speak of this thing where I think I think this is possible, but it's not possible with Nano. But that doesn't mean that Nano isn't doing a good job by focusing. That's a good thing. But all this experiment, and experiments are good even if they fail, right? That's something. If you have like a scientific mindset, some people had some great theories that just happened to be wrong.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, they just happened to be wrong. It doesn't mean they weren't awesome theories.
But now we know they're wrong
because we experimented.
Yeah.
Because we tried it out. Yeah. And I really respect the Nano experiment for its sort of focus, and I respect a lot of the other experiments for their ambition. Say IOTA maybe for its ambition, maybe for example. But yeah, like I can't personally take this code and read it all and test it out on. I just don't have the skills to do that. So I sit back and I watch the experiment in real life. As people try and implement these things, as they try and apply them, and that's that's pretty exciting. And I feel like that's the attitude I've taken to the whole cryptocurrency experiment all the time. I was like, I'm slow to pick apart, these processes and functions, slowly getting, understand more of what was going on from a software point of view, and I had to start from a really low level of understanding. But a lot of the myth or mystery of what might happen was just played out over time. Like it's done a lot of the things that everyone was only guessing whether or not it was possible, and then a lot of those things have happened. So that there's a lot to be said for experimenting in the real world. But if you're experimenting, you've got to put a health warning on your product. You can't you can't go out there and tell everybody they're mad for not selling their house and buying your product.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Maybe he's just batshit crazy.
Yeah,
he's ridiculous.
Maybe he's right. Maybe he's right, but he looks like he's crazy.
Yeah,
he looks like he's rich, but he looks like he's crazy.
I mean, when he scammed his investors back in 2000, it cost him $6 billion or something like that, like $4 billion, $6 billion, something like that. Meaning that he had billions and billions of dollars to lose to pay somebody as restitution for breaking the law, for lying to his investors. That was back in 2000. And he's just doing it again with Bitcoin, which is just insane to me. That and which shows to me that guy has a sickness, some kind of something's going on inside his brain that he never got fixed, where he lied to his investors the first time, had to pay billions of dollars, and is now kind of doing it again, like greenwashing his investors and greenwashing people into like pumping his bags. It's crazy that people just don't learn from their mistakes. But to go back to your thing about maximalism. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say you can learn the wrong things from mistakes, though, can't you? If your mistake involves you becoming very wealthy and powerful, you might keep making that mistake over and over again.
Yeah. No.
Whereas
Jeff Bezos, perfect example.
Yeah, he's not going to learn from the mistake of
He has people pissing in bottles and shitting in bags, his employees, and dying on the floor, and he keeps getting a raise. That's all kinds of fucking up a person's brain. I just try to think of like Pavlovian experiments.
Yeah,
how easy it is to give somebody a reward for doing something bad. It's going to train them to keep doing that bad thing.
So in the UK at the moment, the latest Amazon story is an expose that's coming out of UK distribution depots. I'm trying to get the article up in front of me, but I'm just going to do it from memory because I haven't found it. But it's been around today, and basically they are just destroying an awful lot of product because presumably they mispredict where demand is going to be. And so it ends up at their distribution depots, and then they're destroying perfectly usable things, So it's like those scam emails where it's just like, oh, we're going to have to destroy all these iPhones, so we need to give them away to hapless people who will give us our bank account, give us their bank account details. It's like that, but it's true. Apparently, is that they. So this is the latest Amazon sort of scandal. And, there'll be another one tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be more context on this one.
We do that with food in this country. Have you heard about that?
Oh, well, yeah. I think you guys are worse than us on that, but we're catching you up.
Where it's like if the price falls too much, people just burn their crops instead of trying to sell it.
Yeah.
And at one point, they were just dumping milk out by the thousands and thousands of gallons because the price of milk got too low, and so they didn't want to flood the market with all their milk, so they just dumped it instead.
Yeah, we definitely. Yeah,
That's insane.
That's definitely a global phenomenon, isn't it?
Oh my god!
But yeah, the idea that these things just go to landfill, and it's pretty dire.
But to go back to your comment about maximalism, the idea maximalism itself is an emotional state. It's not a reality. Like in some places we have monopolies. Like in my country, internet is a monopoly, more or less. In 95% of the country, we only have one cable internet provider at any given time, and
Okay.
it's awful. We have
Yeah,
shitty
sounds
service
terrible.
compared to you guys. The prices are out of control, but that's an abnormality. Like
Yeah.
in
Aren't
most
there like
situations,
millions of people in the US are still on like AOL dial-up or something, aren't they?
not really, but they're like on DSL and stuff like that. Just like really, or they just don't have any internet at all. Just because
Yeah.
that they live like in some rural area that just, they don't have any internet. Yeah, so maybe it is
But,
dial up. I mean, maybe,
but
but like,
Elon's gonna save you though, right?
yeah, by destroying the sky at night.
Yes, you can't.
But the
You'll be able
idea
to
of
see
like,
his fine work.
yeah, but like, so the
I
idea of
sat
like,
and watched in my garden. I saw them. Anyway, sorry, you carry on. Yeah.
no, could you really see them?
Yeah, we saw them.
Oh
We saw them,
God.
and they were going. So yeah, yeah, they were in a line, but apparently they were in initial low orbit, and then they were going to go higher. So
Poor
we just went in the garden
astronomers.
to go stargazing,
Oh
and
man.
we saw stars, but we also saw
And lots of
Elon's
satellites.
satellites. Yeah. Anyway, that's fine. He's doing. It's
So
an experiment.
yeah,
He can't reverse that one.
yeah, exactly. That's it. So much for looking 10,000 years into the future or into the past.
Yeah, wait. We were saying how good experiments were, weren't we? They were really
Yeah.
good things. But they're okay as long as you
But
can switch them off again.
exactly.
I think there's Victorian novels about that. I think.
Well, I mean, like World War II, that's an experiment with nuclear power that couldn't turn that off after you drop the bomb. And there's certain things that humanity will, I think, continually force innocent people to learn the hard way about an experiment not working.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not comparing Elon Musk's satellites to World War II, but
but in contrast to all of those things, Colin's experiment looks very, harmless.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, I'm just going to try and make a cryptocurrency that's actually fast, that can actually scale, that doesn't require fees. That seems just such a harmless experiment in contrast. So,
yeah. But even Bitcoin seemed harmless in the beginning, and now we're realizing just how detrimental it is. Using as much energy as an entire country. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. And only with only 1 million on average, 1 million active wallets. 1 million.
Yeah.
So 1 million people are using as much energy as the entire country of Argentina. That's fucking insane to me. And they're like, "Oh no, it's worth it."
Yeah. I find this one of the things I was going to try, and if I had to introduce that topic, but we've found it there. I was going to say it's like Bitcoin uses the same amount of electricity as a certain country, and the only thing that changes over time is which country it is.
Yeah.
It's like because it's the same size as something. There've been different countries now, but Argentina is quite a big one. There's a few more countries to go. It is also important always to say that it is. I think this statistic is always only the electrical consumption, but electricity is like a really valuable form of energy. It's like very usable. You can use it for all sorts of different things if you've got it in the right place. It isn't very transmissible, and I will give the Bitcoin maximalists that. They have cottoned onto something there that you can't very easily transmit electricity long distances without losses. Like it tends to happen that you can transmit information a lot easier. So they're onto something there, but it is not. It's not.
I mean, their logic is, we'll just put a hydro plant in the middle of nowhere. It's like, well, no, you're destroying an ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
from an environmentalist point of view, like
dams are some of the most destructive things you can do to an ecosystem. They're fucking horrible.
Yeah, so in my more radical youth, the work of Derek Jensen, who would advocate the demolishing of dams to restore.
Nice.
But he wouldn't do it himself. He was like, I can't do it myself, but I would advocate it. So he's out there available to people who want to be inspired to take radical environmental action. Monkey wrenching kind of attitudes. But yeah, I'm aware that a dam, it might be hydroelectric power doesn't imply sustainability in any particular way. Like, yeah. Anyway,
and that goes to the whole thing of like oil well burn off. Like that stuff isn't good, because if the price of oil and natural gas is so low that it's no longer sustainable, all they're doing is, dragging out the amount of time that we're going to have those wells open. Because whereas they would have shut it down today, instead they can sell the burn off for some Bitcoin. They may keep it open for another 5-10 years. And it's just like, holy shit. So now it's just like, we're just continuing this cycle of destroying the planet under the guise of making money. And it's just, it's a frustrating thing to have to be around.
Yeah. From an environmentalist's point of view. So I'm an environmentalist turned cryptocurrency enthusiast, definitely not the other way around. Like, I've been involved in environmentalism for a very, very long period of time. I'll give a few sort of scales for that. I have been known to the authorities for participating in shutting down coal-fired power stations. Oh,
nice.
That's a thing that happened. Definitely did happen. So, and this was before my involvement in cryptocurrency. Coming at it from that angle, and for many years working in renewables, like the argument that you can just consume more energy, but adding to the market for energy consumption in this market where demand is so massively high already, and we don't. Michael Saylor's talking about wasted energy. Like this, we cannot have this amount of energy consumption and meet climate change targets that are going to allow the persistence of, our civilization.
Exactly.
It's not that he gets to use that energy for free. It's like that waste is only there because you're riding on the coattails of an astonishingly inefficient system. So,
as I equated it to somebody else, there is no global warming section of this restaurant. Like if you use it, it doesn't matter where you use it on the planet. It all goes to the same place, up in the sky, and it destroys our planet. Like it may not hit you right away, but it's going to hit you eventually.
That. Yeah. And when you describe that, like, I just dismissed the argument out of hand, but I was like, there's some complexity here. But when you describe that burn off, if you're gonna vent, it's methane, isn't it, or something, or natural gas, maybe.
Yeah.
When you're venting these off an oil well, like if you release it in its raw form, it is worse. So if you burn it, it's methane is like has a much higher radiative effect or something, but for a shorter period of time. And then CO2 is just like much more
it's one of the worst ones. It captures so much. It stays up there.
They
for a
burn
long
it
time.
off, and they actually, So it's like, but yeah, the flaring of on the top. This is something that when you describe the economic impact of that, which it might maintain these oil wells as being economically viable for longer, that's horrendous. That's like really, really bad because within the environmental movement, there's been this hope maybe that peak oil might bail us out of climate change, and no one can quite, I think that's a false hope probably now. I think it's probably proven to be a false hope, but the idea that oil might end up being too expensive to burn because we got all the easy oil from near the surface, and now we're having to go deeper, and now we're having to do things like fracking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if Bitcoin's coming along and bolstering the profitability of that kind of blows out the idea out of the water that they're also somehow supporting renewables.
Well, I mean, we just had Bitcoin a coal plant get bought for the sole purpose of mining more Bitcoin in New York.
Is that true? Is
A
that yeah?
VC, yeah, like a hedge fund company bought a coal company
Yeah.
to repurpose it to, and I don't know if they were gonna. I think they were gonna try to like repurpose it to natural gas or something like that. But I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you're just gonna pollute the planet a little bit less because natural
Yeah.
gas. So like the burn off of natural gas isn't so polluting, but getting the natural gas is insanely polluting. I used to work in fracking. I used to work for fracking
Really? Oh,
companies in Wyoming.
yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is so bad for the environment. It's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, we've got a very strong anti-fracking movement in the UK, or have done, and it was quite interesting to see that. I think they've the word moratorium, I think, is
Yeah.
used, and it's always been, but I think it's coming or it's come in some form or other. But yeah, it was delayed a lot. Um, we don't have as much space in the UK, you see, so we can't ignore local environmental destruction quite so much because we're very wherever it is, you're usually quite close to it. Whereas you can hide things in the vast swathes
Yeah.
of
Of
the American
Wyoming.
landmass. I think we don't have that luxury here. You're usually someone lives very close to it if something like that's happening. So it wasn't very popular. But yeah, I think anyway.
I want to
The
jump back to what
the
you said about maximalism because from a
Yeah,
scientific standpoint and a mathematical standpoint, I don't see any maximalism going on in the world of centralized finance at all. Like they're
okay,
all using different programs. They're all using this. It's just like there's different money supplies. There's different currencies. There's different code that people use to send money back and forth. There's different apps. There's different banks. There's different. I mean, you have so many possibilities. And this is in the world of
yeah,
centralized finance. So the fact that
yeah,
Bitcoin people think that the entire world is going to run off of Bitcoin and nothing else, it just
and
shows a
ignore
level of delusion that's just like mind boggling to me.
all the others, right? Like
Yeah. I
the
mean, it's,
fact that they're all there, they're just sat there. You can like find them really easily. Like usually, you can download the wallet, and also the argument for maximalism. Like if you're going to argue against someone, you should usually try and give the best argument
yeah, definitely.
for it's security, right? That's the argument for maximalism. Is like, oh, Bitcoin's the only one that can provide security, right?
I just don't. I mean, we've
Where,
had double spends. We've had, I mean, like,
yeah, where's this like widespread hacking of cryptocurrencies from like a user's point of view,
yeah,
where they're just that Bitcoin stands aside from, if you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
they, we, yeah, we like Nano got really squeezed, obviously,
The spam
with the
attack.
constant spam attack, like
Yeah.
the spam to end all spam, the mother of all spam attacks. Um, and the network got tested, and but for the majority of users, it's a still usable product, right?
Yeah.
And these vast numbers of cryptocurrencies, they're like, they're like functioning for most ordinary users. Are they at the stage where somebody should be buying $500,000 worth every Thursday or whatever they're doing? But is Bitcoin there? I don't know. But yeah, is that so? That's the argument, isn't it? The argument for maximalism is that Bitcoin offers a level of security that the other cryptos can't match, and yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see perfection anywhere. I don't think we're quite there. But yeah, Bitcoin is vulnerable to certain types of attack it as well. And yeah, and
And
I
I
think
don't,
that it's important
and
to
I don't
maintain that
necessarily
sweet
like,
spot.
yeah, and I don't necessarily like hold it against them for not being able to move beyond their mindset because that's a pretty normal behavior for human beings. It's very difficult for the
Yeah,
like it takes time. It takes generations. It took a generation for people to now more or less accept that gay people aren't going to destroy the planet and all civilization as we know it, right? Like
So
it's pretty
in
normal for
science,
gay people to exist in our society and hold hands and kiss and not have the planet implode, right? So, but it took a generation for that to happen, for mindsets to kind of
within
shift, and so it's like I think it'll happen with other cryptocurrencies and but like a lot of these people are like they say this is security. Nothing can beat proof of work because of X, Y, and Z. And they can't imagine, they're dealing with a carburetor, and they can't imagine the existence of an electric car. They just can't, even when it's right in front of them. They say there's no way that can be sustainable. You're like, okay, why are we even arguing? Because like people have been driving them for 10 years now, and you still want to say that electric cars aren't the future? But we have people in this country and in yours who say, oh, no, like electric cars, I'm always going to drive a gas powered car. And you're like, why?
Yeah.
This is because they've always done it that way.
I think I was watching, there was a little YouTube video popped up on some feed or other of this new Tesla S Plaid, or whatever, however that's pronounced, and bombing around a racetrack and overtaking all of these, fossil fueled powered cars.
Yeah, all the
I was going to say
in
science they have like there's a thing where progress occurs one funeral at a time, which is basically the old guard within any scientific discipline. You literally have to wait for them to die, otherwise your academic discipline can't progress. It's like they just hold on to their ideas, and that's that it's definitely there in human nature. I mean, like why spend all the effort getting to know something and understand it for then to accept that it's not the pinnacle of all human thought? It's like you have to go back to basics and be ignorant again. And in my life I've maintained a relatively healthy ignorance throughout on a lot of topics. I don't mind not being the smartest person in the room. Like if I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind being told. Like I'm expecting to if get quite a lot of feedback. If people listen to this, what they'll say will be quite interesting. Because I'm sure people will blow loads of holes in all the ideas. But it's you want to be able to roll with the ideas as they're developed, because what are the chances that the ideas that you've got now can't be surpassed by the next generation, and in generations within that might be within cryptocurrency, that could be 2 years, 2 months. Someone new is going to come to the space, they're going to read all the stuff, they're going to develop their new alternatives, whether they're developing within Bitcoin core or whether they're developing on some shitcoin. It's like new people are going to enter the space. They're going to develop the ideas, and they'll either decide that I'm wrong and they'll develop on Bitcoin core, or they'll be developing on some other chain.
Yeah, my mom always used to say that like you don't have any idea where you're going to be in 20 years. And you can have a goal, and that's great, but you have to accept that may not be the reality of where you're going to be in 20 years, and you have to roll with it. And it doesn't mean that you won't be able to do that thing in 20 years. It just means that may not be your focal point in 20 years. Yeah. And I've kind of like lived that way of like, that way I can still enjoy cryptocurrency. I can still enjoy Nano, but I also accept that it might not be around in 20 years, or it might not be anything the way we view it now in 20 years. It may be something completely different. And it's just, you got to accept that's how it works.
I used to feel a healthy skepticism about renewables, because I was involved in renewables before a massive boom that is probably still continuing. I think it may run out of steam a little bit with some stuff that's happening in terms of solar panel prices and stuff like that. But I was getting involved in an industry at a time when it was just coming up, like, some cliff of exponential growth, but throughout, I've maintained some skepticism about it. Is society going to adopt this? Even like, are the fossil fuel advocates correct that,
Yeah.
you maintain that healthy skepticism through it. And then what happens after like a decade or so when you haven't been paying attention and then you switch back on again, even if you've been working in something, you often don't necessarily pay attention to these broader movements and changes that happen. You look back and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's wind turbines everywhere.
Yeah.
There's solar panels on the roof of almost every house. It's like, when did that happen? And it's like, well, it happened in the last 10 years because 10 years is a really long time. And, it's, I've been interested in cryptocurrency since what I worked out today to be 2013. So, I'm not there at the beginning, but been there for quite a long time. And it's like, I had some skepticism, I'm still going to support this and, participate. But did I know it was going to do this? You step back and it's just like, $1.3 trillion worth of value in the,
It's insane.
It's astonishing. But that's it. You don't need to be right about exactly what's going to happen in life. If you take an experimental attitude to stuff, currently $1.324 trillion, and I'm guessing the trillion because there's an awful lot of commas in this massive number.
It's crazy. I mean, like,
that's on the day of a massive sell-off. So I think it's halved since it's
that's wild.
It's absolutely crazy. So but I didn't know, but I remember having that skepticism about renewables, a healthy skepticism, not the hindering skepticism that stops you doing something, but it was like, I'm working on this, but I might be wrong. Not everyone I speak to believes in this. If I go down the pub, which is an English for bar. Did I pronounce that right? I think bar. Yeah. But in England, it's pub. If I go down the pub and chat about renewables, I might get beaten up. It's like a distinctly possible outcome, like 10, 15 years ago or something like that, maybe. But I still thought, I might be wrong. Maybe these other people are right that it's just completely silly. But having that healthy skepticism in the back of the mind just is a fundamental part of science. It just really is. Now, if you're confident in your position, then advocate for it, definitely. Like, I don't have a problem with that. If people want to be convincing, and there's a space in life for rhetoric as well. Like, if you want to be convincing, if you've got a good point, then, be convincing. That's really, really important. But these maximalists aren't convincing me,
No.
I don't know who they are convincing, but they're not convincing me. And if I look at Bitcoin dominance, that's down to 45%. So, they've convinced less than half the money that's decided to speculate itself onto cryptocurrency markets. So,
well, it's
I
funny.
don't even know that they're doing a very good job of convincing.
It's funny that you say that what you said about healthy skepticism, and I think it's probably the reason why progress takes so long, is because the people who are creating this amazing progressive technology are healthily skeptical about their own stuff. And when someone asks me questions about Nano, I'm just like, oh yeah, that could happen. Like that spam attack could happen, or this, or Patrick. Patrick does it all the time. He's like, oh yeah, that could totally happen. And it's like, and they're all like, see. And then it takes a while, but like, that's, you have to be healthily skeptical about stuff. But that can also be detrimental to the growth of your project if you're acknowledging that attacks can happen. And that's the thing about Bitcoin people, is they just flat out lie. Oh no, that could never happen. Oh, we're the fastest cryptocurrency on the planet. Oh, because we have Lightning. Well, does Lightning work all the time? Well, no, but like, it will. It's just like this constant thing of like, oh, like, we're the cleanest cryptocurrency, because we're using. They have that new quote. Nick Carter always says this. Oh, like 73% of miners are using clean energy. No, 73% of miners are using a portion of their energy output coming from clean energy. That could be 0.1%. It could be 100%. You have no idea. But what we do know is only roughly a guesstimate is 39% of all mining comes from clean energy. So that means that 73% of people are not using 100% clean energy. He's just lying. And he does it to misdirect and to whitewash and to greenwash. And he knows exactly what he's doing because he's heavily invested in Bitcoin. His entire company is about investing in Bitcoin and Bitcoin technologies. And so it's like when people start sending me, because people do it all the time when I'll rebut one of their Bitcoin comments and they send me all these Nick Carter arguments. And I say, well, those aren't scientific journals. Those are opinion pieces. It says at the top, opinion piece, op-ed. Like he's giving you his opinion. And that's not something that you should be taking as science.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that this whole industry, economy, or whatever it is that we're involved in, isn't weighed down by the responsibility of having itself, peer reviewed. In where there are other industries are having to jump through those hoops to an extent. Equally, evading scrutiny in their own ways, of course, as well. But we could definitely benefit from more scrutiny, structured scrutiny, like process and procedure for that. And I don't want to start sounding naive like other industries are doing that, but I work in quite heavily regulated industries, and okay, there might be gaps in regulation and there might be people doing things they shouldn't be doing.
But that's why you have whistleblowers. That's why you have people like us who push back and constantly bring it to people's attention. And you can't just shut off and hope somebody else is going to do it. Like we have to be the ones that do it. We have to constantly make people aware of it. It's tough. It's tough work.
And that's why, to be honest, when I heard what the overarching project for your podcast was, then I was like, oh, good, good that somebody's doing this consistently, right? Because this is to be honest, to be able to talk in this way is in crypto is for me has been unusual. Been hanging around for a while and haven't had the opportunity to talk at length in detail like this, with or without an audience, really, because far too often the conversation focuses very quickly onto price, onto these things, it's where do you think you get real, actual, dramatic generational change from? It's from scrutiny and things being tested, and they can be tested through ideas, through conversation, and then also through experiment and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see what you're doing and participate in, because absolutely necessary, and people should expect there should be a lot more of this to go alongside we should be rapidly coding and experimenting with new things, new implementations, and all that kind of stuff as well. But we need to question we need to question what we're doing, why we're doing it, ethically as well as the rest.
I will say the reason I think what I've noticed is that the podcast doesn't have a much larger audience is that in general, human beings don't like to question their actions, or we don't like to be, we don't like to have a mirror held up to us that often, because self-examination is hard. That's why, most people don't go to therapy, why most people don't have those hard conversations with their kid about sex. They don't like that healthy introspective questioning of how can we be better. And it's a very small percentage of the population historically over time that has done that. And so I could easily just be like, hey, number go up, up only, blah, blah. It's like, and all those serve a purpose, and it helps bring people to the space, which is good because that, now we have a $1.3 trillion market cap. But at the same time, the way to keep those people here, in my mind, is to have healthy introspection and discuss discuss what's a scam, what's not a scam, why is it a scam, how can we learn from that, blah, blah. Because it's like those people who get scammed, they never come back historically. Yeah. And so I want to try to help keep as many people here as possible. What?
Yeah, I was trying to say, actually, probably there's a thing where you might come back,
and then get scammed again.
Get scammed again. They shouldn't come back unless they've changed. But they unfortunately, we probably some do. But I absolutely agree. Like the other thing as well is it's we can focus too much on what's going to win, and not what should win.
Yeah.
It's like the world already exists, right? We don't need cryptocurrency to make the world. We've already got an economy. It does a lot of things and stuff like that. It's quite an exciting world that produces a certain number of things anyway. Like cryptocurrency has got to improve this reality, or why bother? Because it's an awful lot of, especially if you're going to sell your house and invest in it, there's an awful lot of risk there,
Sell your house to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, there's an awful lot of risk and there's an awful lot of stress. And it's like, I don't know, you know the phrase possible worlds, right? So if
different
it's
dimensions.
like if I could be rich in the world where Bitcoin is successful, and for me that's not as exciting a world as the one where Nano is successful, for example, if they're mutually exclusive, which I don't think they are, but might say they were. But because the world in which Nano is successful is one where people can actually use this cryptocurrency, vast numbers of people can use it.
Yeah. And
so when I back Nano, I'm also backing the world that is worth putting all of this effort into, because, I could just not worry about crypto. And over this many years that it's been, I spent significant periods of time not thinking about crypto at all. And, not looking after wallets that I should have looked after, and things like that.
Not checking the price every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Not checking the price every 5 minutes, not being aware, having to come back and catch up on what's happened, trying to catch up and understand what was happening with Bitcoin Cash was a little bit like, oh, what's this? I was at work and someone at work was interested, so they started talking about it. So I went back and researched it all. It was, it's like it takes up a lot of our time if we let it. So we should care what it's going to do, and is it, we can't just think, oh, cryptocurrency is going to follow a certain path anyway, and therefore we just have to think about our position within that. I reject that entirely. It's like we're part of something that has the capacity to change things. It could change a lot of things. Even just changing money would be pretty exciting. But then people are looking to try and apply that concept to other aspects as well. So it could change an awful lot of things, and it could change an awful lot of things for the better if it wanted to. And so as well as trying to, hoard a particular piece of that pie, also we should surely, be thinking about what it is that we want it to be. And, the reason why I've happily supported Nano, been a Nano reply guy, is because, because I like that vision. It's a vision that is worth experimenting for, worth fighting for, worth supporting, because it's an improvement if your cryptocurrency can actually be used by people large numbers of people, rather than you said 1 million active accounts. But,
and the idea that nothing's going to be perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect. We have to work to constantly make it better. and what community is actively acknowledging the mistakes in their project and working to fix them versus just trying to tell people those mistakes don't exist. You're just imagining it.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. Well, it's just like, whoa, what the fuck? Come on. Like you're trying to tell me that Bitcoin didn't have a double spend 6 months ago? Like everybody acknowledged it. And now you're trying to say that Bitcoin doesn't have double spends. It's like, well, now you're just lying. Either you just don't know what you're talking about or you're lying. And I'm just not into working on those kind of projects, supporting those kind of projects. It's just an ethos I don't want in my life. It's just like you said, it's toxicity. I don't want that kind of toxicity in my life at all.
Yeah.
So I got to wrap it up because
no, you don't. Well, you do that.
I thought you said.
So
no,
is this
don't.
January is this January? No, you should. No, we've all got responsibilities, and this one's yours. No, I was just going to say, was that January the 20th? Was this thing? I'm just trying to look at
the double spend.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly when it was. It was. I
just did a quick Google, and that's why I got a little bit distracted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was talking with Mike in Space. He's been on the show a couple of times, and he was like, "Well, we don't know if it was actual double spend." I was like, "Yeah, but we don't know if it wasn't a double spend. We know something happened, and we don't know if that person actually turned around and used it again. There's no verifiable data to show that you did or didn't, or that it did or didn't occur. We just know that it could have occurred. Like there was a breach in the chain that allowed it to happen, and so we don't, and nobody know, and the fact that nobody can say with certainty that a double spend didn't actually happen shows that there's a hole there, and that needs to be addressed. And if you want to pretend it didn't happen and not address it, then you don't really have a secure protocol in my mind. Because the protocol is only as secure as the people who, build it and maintain it.
Yeah.
So
I'll go back to things I said earlier, but yeah, basically every bit of the world that I'm involved in requires an awful lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
And it's not given. It's not given. You don't get it for free. You get it because people make it work. Well-designed things don't require as much maintenance. I'll give you that. That's definitely the truth. But yeah, there's things function because they've been made to function. They've been explored and they've been tested. Yeah. And anyway, but yeah, wrap me up. I am ready, and I really appreciate it. It was the whole thing was very enjoyable.
Yeah,
very therapeutic, by the way.
It was well, good. I've been a bartender for a long time, so I definitely incorporate that aspect of it. Yeah. So that was automatic _blue. Is that right? Blue or blues?
I think it's blues with an S. Yeah, I'll just check.
Okay, hold on. Let me check too. Yeah, yeah, blue. Automatic _blues.
Yeah, it is.
Do you want people to reach out on Twitter, or do you want them just to fuck off with their questions?
Oh no, just fire them at me. I'm a working parent, so don't expect fast answers. And I've been arguing on the internet for many, many years, so don't expect me to roll over.
And do you officially call yourself a Nano reply guy now?
I don't think I can
part-time
claim that anymore. I'm not so good at that anymore. Some people are just prolific.
Oh my God.
And I'm not as prolific, but I definitely did reply. I did my stint. I've worked on the Nano reply guy mine. I've toiled.
You paid your dues. You're passing that off to another person. Mira.
Yeah. People come along, the next generation. Well, that's not true. Some of the people who have been doing it for years are very good at it. Anyway, yeah. You've got to advocate what you believe in. Alongside all the other things we just said over the last hour and a half.
Yeah. All right. So can't wait to have you on again sometime in the future once more technology questions pop up. But thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, you can tweet at automatic_blues. And thanks for listening. Catch you next time.